Hey, this is Erin Lindstrom, and you're listening to Thank You For You. This is a show about celebrating and acknowledging our humanness as well as our beingness, the easy and the hard, the gifts and the gifts we don't really like but choose to accept anyway. This is a show about and for people in pursuit of more peace, more joy, more money, more justice, and more of the awe that life has to give us. Thank you for being here, and thank you for you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Just kidding, it's a podcast. My kids say that now because this is what life in 2021 is like. Anyway, it's Erin and I'm glad you're here. Today's episode is all about feast and famine and being able to shift out of that and into making consistent revenue with your business. So if you're anything like me in my experience or many of the clients I work with, a lot of times it feels like it's all or nothing. Like there's sales and there's people. And then we go into the periods of like, oh my God, no one's here. Does anyone like me? Will anyone ever buy again? Oh my God. And shifting out of that is really about shifting out of control and back into trust. And that's easier said than done. So this is really mindset work that has to happen. And as you kind of like change the internal dialogue that's happening, your outer world will reflect that. Or, an asterisk, right? Or it might not reflect that, but you'll still feel okay. So instead of seeing everything as feast and famine, you'll start to feel like you're just in flow. And if you ever have been to the beach or have seen waves on a PowerPoint presentation, you'd see that like waves crash and break. And then there's a moment where they like roll back into the ocean before they come up again. So the ebbs and flows and the highs and lows for that matter, are natural. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. What is wrong is the feelings we make about how poorly things are going in those moments. And when you're showing up fully in your power, whether that means like in your marketing or taking care of yourself or taking care of the clients you have, you don't have to feel like, oh my God, everything's going wrong. Instead, you start to really build trust, and that changes your whole sales game, your whole business game, and most importantly, I think the way you're feeling, because on a day-to-day basis, if you're feeling miserable and if your thoughts are making you miserable, that's not cool. Like that's not fun. And I'm someone who, if I'm going to be in business, like I want it to be fun. Will every day be, perfect? Absolutely not. But for the most part, I'm trying to create an experience that feels joyful to me. I feel fulfilled. And of course there are challenges, but the challenges don't mean I have to think that the world is ending, if that makes any sense. So without further ado, I'll let you enjoy this episode. If you have any questions or want more information, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm around. It's me. And we can totally chat about it. Enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Welcome. I'm Erin Lindstrom, and we are about to talk about something near and dear to my heart. That is going from that feeling of feast and famine to consistent revenue in your business. And I jotted down a couple of notes as I was just thinking about like, okay, what actually needs to change here? What needs to shift? And if you're inside my free Shiny Sales Facebook group, yesterday I hosted a free call in there. And one of the big things that came up was about this kind of like shifting from there's nothing, there's not enough, like I'm stressed, to I have more than I need. And the interesting thing about this to me is that so many times we're really focused on like, how do I change the numbers and not how do I change the feeling? And there's power in knowing that you can change the feeling. I'm not saying that everything in your life changes. I'm not saying that that is, the road to safety or that should be enough, because it's not. However, to me, there's something very empowering when you can actually notice that like, okay, everything, I'm going to use an example here. I don't mean to invite you into this if it's not your thing, right? But like, have you ever been in a position where you're like, everything kind of sucks right now? Like the truth is I'm stressed about my bills. I'm stressed about, this person who might pull out of their contract. She's ghosting me. I'm stressed about this. Like there's very real stressors that are happening, right? And while that's happening, it's hard, difficult, challenging, whatever word you want to use, to show up and be high vibe and to get on a sales call and to not care about the outcome when like the truth is your earth life is requiring you to care right now, right? And what I want to bring to you, invite you into is like, you don't have to 100% step out of fear and into abundance, let's just say. And that's it. Like that's not it. And it doesn't have to be all the time. You don't have to be 24/7, like Cindy Lou Who, feeling your best, on top of the world, all the confidence in the world. In fact, I would be worried about you if that's how you felt all the time, because then you're probably not having the full human experience and you're probably avoiding some of your feelings. And so like, we're not going for perfection. If perfection in your book is feeling great all of the time, like, no, it's okay. Like, you're allowed to have the human experience. That said, you can access peace while things are going wild on the outside. And I think that's really important, because being able to do that is winning the game. That is actually accessing abundance. And when you know that you can do that, then it becomes like a different story of, this is how I'm feeling right now. Like, I'm really stressed, but I know, like, in my heart that like everything's going to be okay. But I trust that everything's working out for me, even though I can't see it. Right. And like, that's deep. And so one of the questions that was coming up yesterday is like, okay, how? And that's such a good question. And because it takes so much time, and I feel like for myself, like that, my personal transformation through that, like, really required like a lot of self-work. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of reading for me. And I think this is different for everyone's experience, but it was about doing what was nourishing for me. And so thinking differently and learning different things and doing healing work, like all of that came into play with us. And so I want to share with you what I wrote down. So going from feast and famine to consistency, like the first title was the 3 things you need. And then I was like, but there's 5, and some of them are interrelated. So I'm not even going to care about the numbers. I'm just going to share with you, and hope that they help a little bit. And yeah. Okay. So the first thing is mindset. If you do not have to have a perfect mindset. You just need to be aware of the fact that you have a mindset, and that your mind is telling you things throughout the day, and that like you are actually in control of that, even though you might not feel like it right now. So if you're hearing all the time, or thinking all the time, whatever it feels like to you, however you're kind of narrating for yourself, like, oh, this isn't going to work, or nothing ever works, or there's no one around me, there's like all of these lack statements, notice that. Because your mindset, like, you're the only one who can change that. I can't change your life experience, because your experience is based on your perspective. So that is something to consider, right? So just start noticing, like, what are you saying to yourself? How are you thinking? How are you saying that to the world? When you're coming to conversations and you're coming to connect with people, is it is the first thing that you do, like, complain? And if it is, like, you're not bad, it's fine. That is like how we're raised most of the time. And so many times we connect around pain instead of pleasure. So just something to notice, and something to lean into. So that's number 1. So the next thing, so that's mindset, right? Now, if you're like, wow, I know that I'm thinking really negatively about this. I know that my thoughts are like not okay, or not what I want them to be. It's not that they're not okay. They're just like, I would like to shift them. Why can't I shift them? And if you've been sitting there for years, the answer isn't just mindset work. Journaling's not going to fix it. That actually takes healing, which is number 2 on my list without numbers. But healing work is different than mindset work. Mindset, I mean, at least you can think about them differently, right? And so if you are stuck, if you can't change something, if you know what you want to change, but you're stuck in this healing, like this cyclical loop of sameness, then that takes healing. And that is not something that information will necessarily change or move for you. It's more about being with yourself, asking yourself the questions, and you can do different things. You can go to therapy. That is a form of healing. You can do breath work. You can do embodied dance. You can do, there's so many different things to get in touch with kind of like your spirituality and love and your heart, and to kind of like unnumb and unfreeze, so you can start to receive in a way that maybe you can't because you're in some sort of like safety mechanism, right? So healing is the second thing, and really just asking yourself like, okay, not just how do I need to change my mind, but like, what do I need to heal? Receiving, and like getting the receiving muscle kind of like opened and working, that requires healing. It can't just happen with your mind. It's a full body thing. It's a whole experience of your life. It's not just in your business. And so really taking a moment to notice that like, this isn't just over here, it's everywhere. It's something inside of you that we're actually healing now and shifting. Okay. That's number two. The third thing is strategy. So great. Let's say you like change your mind. Your thoughts are like way more helpful and they're serving you better right now. They're not perfect, but they're progressing. And like each day, like you're managing it, right? And then you're doing the healing work. So you're feeling more into yourself. You're being more comfortable with receiving. You're forgiving, like whatever past stuff has happened. You're like letting go. So you're really in like a receiving kind of place. Then the next thing you need is an actual strategy. If we're just doing the healing and the mindset work, cool. But like, that's not helping your marketing or your sales or anything like that. So really having like a grounded, and again, this doesn't have to be set in stone. It doesn't have to be forever, but I like to look at like my next 90 days and know that like, all right, this is what I'm focused on. This is what I'm doing, and having a strategy to actually show up, to make connections, to create a relationship and move people from, hi, I'm Erin, to yes, I would like to go on this adventure. You know what I mean? So really like setting yourself up for success, having a roadmap of some kind, having intentions, right? Like actually figuring out what could this flow look like is important. And you can throw it away as you go. You can change it as you go, but it's helpful to have a destination, right? That way on the road trip, like, you know where you're headed and you can go off the grid on the way there if that's what you choose to do, but at least you know what you're trying to do. And you have like the roadmap of how to get there. You know that a path exists. You don't need to make it harder for yourself. You can let someone show you the way if they've gone there before, like ask for directions. That's great. Okay. So that's number three. The fourth thing is confidence. You can have that map, but if you're not confident enough to step out and take a step in the direction of what you desire, okay, like you can do all of the mindset, all of the healing, have the strategy, and you can still do nothing. And I'm not like, that's not bad necessarily either, right? Like none of this is to shame, and what if you were just like 10% more confident? What if you knew that what you had was valuable? What if you were sure that like you could help people? And so you actually showing up and doing this, it's not even about you. It's about being of service, right? It's about using your purpose, your, whatever, there's all different language for this stuff, right? But if like there's something that God put inside of you and this is your purpose on earth, then it's like you have to do that. And it does require a little bit at least of confidence to kind of like feel like you can, right? And that I feel like confidence really comes from when you're doing the mindset work and you're doing the healing work and you have the strategy. Now you're probably going to be confident because the piece of your mind that's like, we don't know enough, now actually has enough. You've checked the boxes. So you're going to like up the ante on your confidence there, right? And then the fifth part is actually taking action. If you're feeling the confidence, but not doing anything, that's another form of kind of, pushing things away, of not receiving. And I'm doing this because like, if you want abundance, if you want more money, if you want to get out of feast and famine, what you want to do more and more is to get into flow. Feast and famine, the opposite is flow. And guess what? Flow actually looks a lot like feast and famine. It's your perspective on it. So if you're feeling like, oh my God, I have nothing. And then, oh my God, I have everything. Like, what if you just believed that whole time that you had, that was consistency? And that you were open to receiving, right? When you can kind of like shift that for yourself, you shift your feelings, and then that perspective does shift what's actually happening. And with the strategy and the mindset work and all that jazz, when you're showing up and you're confident, then that flow becomes a little bit faster. So perhaps that's what you actually want, is not so much, it's not that you're in feast and famine, it's that the flow is slow and you want to speed it up. And that's something you can intentionally do. Right? And that has to do with like, how are you thinking about things? How are you seeing things? Slow flow to fast flow is easier than off, on. I can't get it to turn on. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's how you're how are you even naming this problem? And then how are you addressing it? And so when it comes to flow and creating consistency, you have to remember too, that like you are more than a meat suit, right? You are more than just like the numbers in your Stripe account. You are a person. And the way to kind of like bring flow is a heart thing. It's abundance, right? It's like coming from here. The way to get into flow is about more than your business. So you can apply it to business with your strategy and your healing and all of that stuff, and look outside your business. Where are you seeing abundance? How are your relationships flowing? Go fix it. Like if you have a conscious conversation that needs to be had, when you fix one thing outside of your business, it will help what's happening inside your business. Because how you do one thing is typically how you do everything, and how one block shows up in your business will usually show up outside too. Your business acts as a mirror. And so when you're seeing things that aren't necessarily working over here, things that you want to fix, look around you and see where else that's showing up. Because what if that one conversation with someone outside of your business actually changed the flow in your business, because it's actually just affecting your heart and your flow and how you're showing up and your confidence, right? And so it's all connected because you are in charge of it all. So that's kind of the dealio. So there's a little bit of reframing here between feast and famine and flow, and actually just like, it's all flow. Maybe it's too slow. But also, can you be grateful for the slowness? What are the wins in the slow? And then how are you showing up to shift it? And how is it connected to your purpose so that you changing the money isn't the only win? You using your gifts and being of service is actually the biggest win, and the money is a bonus. And we can play with that and kind of expand it as you go. Okay. All right. Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Hey, it's Erin, and I want you to know that you matter. Everything you're doing and everything you've done, it all matters. It all counts. Because you are important to the people around you, your family and friends, your audience, your clients, and quite honestly to the world. Whether you're changing lives on the front line or changing lives while you're changing diapers, your presence matters. Every life you touch counts. And from just one interaction, there can be infinite, meaningful effects. And for that reason, I want to thank you for showing up and doing the work to be with yourself and share your light and your gifts and your love with those around you. If you want support with any of this human being stuff, you're always welcome to join me inside of my coaching membership, Human Being Club, at humanbeingclub.com, or follow along with me on Instagram for more behind the scenes silly stuff at Erin Lindstrom. Once again, thank you for being here, and thank you for you.